My guest today for the podcast is Mr. Leo Mars. He was once the owner of a breathwork studio in Venice, California that operated for 8 years and is currently the owner of the Ether app that is hoping to bring breathwork to you in your mobile device. He also is the author of a new book called The New Creator that will be out soon as he is finishing up working on it. This was a very interesting conversation today, and hopefully one of many for Mr. Leo Mars to come back on the podcast. We simply talked about breathwork and the inner workings of how that helps you connect to your inner self, as well as help you come over emotional trauma and bring moments of ecstasy and joy. This was a great conversation, and I am very excited for you to listen to this one on how breathwork helps you get in touch with yourself. Enjoy the podcast. Here we go. Yeah. Leo Mars, welcome to the podcast. Time to blast off here. Let's get to it. I want to start because the audience has no idea what has gone into this podcast, but we have literally had so many technical difficulties for this podcast. Yeah. From the first time we recorded, where I accidentally hit the stream button, and then we just didn't have an episode to go off of. Yeah. And then today with the microphones and the lighting and the camera that just died on us. So we're doing a one camera angle today, a little different than normal, but thank you for your patience.
Oh man, this has been fun.
Yeah. Cheers. Let's get our cheers in.
Yeah.
Daniel, join in. You're with us here.
Yeah. Cheers.
New executive producer Daniel is joining us today for the first time to our sit-in.
Indeed.
Today's his internship. We'll see if he gets hired.
We had a mic. Yeah, we had a mic for him, but
yeah, that mic's horrible. I'm sorry. We will get you a mic. We will get Daniel a mic. Don't you guys worry. Anyways, thank you for taking time out of your day, coming on the podcast. Dude, I have so many questions for you and your profession and what got us intrigued together.
I don't know if I'd call it a profession, but
fair enough. But enough to where like, when we started talking, I was extremely intrigued with like what you're doing, what you're building, and then come to find you've got other projects and things of that nature. But to take it back, let's go a little bit into your background. From what you've told me and what I kind of know, you were out here in Denver for a little bit, then you moved away, and then you had opened up a breathwork studio in California, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about that because that's very interesting from what you said too. I think it was like the first breathwork workshop, lab, whatever you want to call it.
Sure. Yeah. All the above.
Yeah, in the United States. Is that correct? Am I speaking?
Yeah, we think it like we don't know of one that was before it, a studio that was just dedicated to breathing.
Right.
I think my intuition says that there probably are, but I mean, just it's been around for thousands of years, so I'm sure there's some breath-focused studios somewhere.
Well, I'm sure in the world, but in the United States, it's not very. It's getting more and more well known, which is why our conversation intrigued me so much. And I was like, "Hey, you need to come on the podcast." Was because I've been getting into a bit more of just like meditation, wellness, stuff of that nature. I've had a lot of things in life go on, as you kind of know, and so like that's something that's interested me. Is like, how can I calm myself and concentrate myself down? And I find meditating, or the term meditating, to just be difficult, it seems, to get, into that space and that headspace.
Yeah.
You find that difficult at all?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'm
100%. Yeah, dude.
So let's go into the breath work itself. Actually, I don't want to go that way. I think, let me see what I got here. I got some notes for us.
All right. You're doing great.
Yeah, I think I'm doing great. Goodness gracious.
Just keep it natural.
Yeah, how was your day? Let's have the people want to start there. Really know us. So one of the things we first started talking about when we met was the app that you're creating. And that's kind of the main reason you're coming on, is to discuss the app, but that involves the breathing and the breath work that
I'm coming on because of you.
That's
Like,
all right.
This is cool.
All right.
I enjoy talking about cool shit.
So what, okay, well, let's go there. You're going to go down that direction then. Why did you come on? Like, what were you like, let me go on a podcast to talk about some stuff.
Oh, wow. That's a rabbit hole, I would say. Well, this is the first time I've been on a podcast.
Technically the second.
Technically the second, yeah. Yeah. And I guess probably for a long time, I've felt like there's so much that, you know, in my life story and the people who've influenced my life and the special experiences, for a long time, probably a decade, I felt like explicitly like stagnant in that area. Like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like you need to be vulnerable with the world. And I would say, like, COVID, building up to COVID, like, I've always kind of been on the director, producer, owner, behind the scenes guy or whatever, and everything I do. And like, the timing of your request, hey, do you want to be on the podcast, was like perfect for me. It was like, yeah, this is a yes. Your energy, your vibe, your curiosity felt sharp and interesting and exciting. So yeah.
I appreciate that. What did you mean be vulnerable more with the world? That was something that stuck out to me in what you were just talking about.
Like, just sharing, feel like my life has been pretty unique and wild, and I'm happy to be here.
Right.
Like, I'm happy to be alive, right?
Of course, yeah.
Like, I've been chased by a grizzly. I've almost gone down in a plane crash. I'm from Alaska, you know?
Okay.
Like, I've like had all these situations. I've been high. I've been to hell, you know?
Yeah.
So, and a lot throughout all of that, I've spent, like, one of my primary mentors is a world famous philosopher who I hang out with. It's like, you know, I've been influenced by some spectacular human beings, and that's wild, you know. And typically, like there's so much that can come through that at this point I don't think is mine. Like, I feel like I've had the privilege of, you know, almost getting eaten by a grizzly bear or whatever the fuck, hanging out with a great philosopher, and there's some cool shit that comes through that, you know.
Yeah. You've lived a life of many ups and downs and lefts and rights, where it's one extreme and then the other. You're
almost psychedelic.
Yeah.
Like,
well, life in a way is
for sure
kind of a trip.
Yeah.
When you think about it, I mean, just the idea, just the highs and the lows that come with it. Where, like, you're having amazing years, and then, you know, such as life, that something comes and you have a couple bad, or maybe one or two. And you got to pull yourself out of those bad times, and then they make you enjoy the good time. And hopefully you, if you're, in my opinion, someone that is insightful and trying to learn and live the best life possible, you're also taking the lessons from those bad times. Because there's always a lesson, whatever that is, if you're willing to put the work in to sit with it and figure out what it is. And that's where I think a lot of people, it's hard to sit with yourself.
Totally.
It's hard to just, like, and then be like, I'm a fuck up, and then come out of that. I mean, I look at my own life, and, you know, speaking of vulnerability, I've been a bit more open about this on the podcast in general, and things, and especially with close friends. But I mean, for the last 3 or 4 years of my life, I was very closed off and very just, like, emotionally unavailable for anyone involved, really. And I would still laugh, smile, make people laugh, but that's very surface level when you get into, like, the emotional states, you know. And not that those can't bring you euphoria and things of that nature and take you into a different scope and a different mindset, but I think that was just something that it was hard to pull myself out of. And looking back, I'm like, that's a lesson I've learned, and me's dead. I'm never letting that me. That's the term I'm using. But, like, that person, I don't want ever to come back out. I don't want that to come back again. And second, something initiates a little scaredness and fear in me. I almost use that as a trigger. I'm like, oh, that means it's like the opposite. I'm like, oh, I guess I should do that. Like, I'm scared. Have you thought about fear in that sense, or has? As
a an indication, or like a
a sign, indication. Yes.
take a look.
Yes.
Open your eyes. What's going on here?
Right. There's something else there that you're not seeing. And whether that's like an evil spirit or the devil trying to keep you in your lower state. I think as you grow, we're going to get deep into this philosophy before we get into any of your breath work and stuff. But I've had this thought where with fear, on the lines of fear, and what we just said, fear being an indicator. And not only just an indicator for you of something you might not know or the unknown, but also when you take a step back and you look back years at that, it's almost an indicator for the next step in your life in one way or another. And I think there's a battle there when you have that instinct that there's a good and bad battle, a yin and yang there. And again, an evil spirit or your devil, whatever you want to call it in your religion, is wanting you to not do that thing. It wants you to hold back because it knows if you do it, you're on a path to a higher self that it can no longer control and keep down and keep in this world or dimension, whatever you want to believe in again. Am I getting too philosophical on you?
No, I love it. That's fascinating. It's an incredible inquiry.
Because I always think on the other side of that fear is something, one, it's unknown. Like you're scared of the unknown. But how many times have you like taken a leap and then it works out? You know, versus the other time, like if you give into that fear, it always becomes your reality, even though you didn't want it to happen. I mean, every time throughout history, we see it in movies play out, you know. I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so I want to use a Star Wars reference, but Anakin is scared and fearful to lose Padme. So because of that fear, he does anything he can to keep her alive. And in doing so, he kills her.
Oh my goodness.
And then he turns to the dark side.
Okay.
Because of that fear. It was inevitable because the second he put that fear in motion and he let it control him, boom, that became his reality.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
You really got a deep thought.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole, I would say like a Pandora's box. Like that's,
Kinda,
yeah.
You sip a beer to get that thought flowing. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah, let me do that.
You weren't ready to go deep on it. I didn't mean to make you go too
No,
deep
that's good. This
down
is
the
really
rabbit
good.
hole there.
No, this is like very hard hitting.
Sometimes the podcasts go that way.
Okay. Yeah, I would say like fear is probably the foundational demon of my experience. Like, sounds like it's common, right?
It's a what?
Common.
Yes.
Fear.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Especially like, you know, as you were saying that, I was having a feeling of like being exposed in a way. Like, oh no, like we're gonna go here. We're gonna go into fear. Oh shit.
Yeah, that wasn't on the paper we agreed on. No, I wasn't ever trying to expose you. I was talking more about myself than anything.
That's the beautiful thing is that's the universality of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been on my mind recently with a lot of things where I'm like, yeah, that it really does take shape and hold your reality. And that like classically old philosophical saying of like your fears become your reality. It's so true. And I don't know. It just like, I just something I never thought about. And then now it's like very front and center in my life. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So I definitely, if something scares me, I need to be like, I'm going to go do that within reason, you know, not like I'm going to go swim with great white sharks with a meat suit on.
Go walk into the street.
Yeah. We're going to go into the jungle and we're going to strap a T-bone steak to our necks and whoever, you know, finds the tiger first wins. No, we're not going to do anything like that, but within reason with like, and again, like self-guiding in that sense. I just find that conundrum very interesting because I think we slide into that fear state a lot easier. So much easier to sit in that for a while. And that's where people have regret down the line because they sit in that fear. Oh, if only I like I mean, think about how many stories or people, you know, were like, oh, if only I took that chance and invested or whatever, you know, something simple as that.
Yeah.
Like my buddy told me about Apple in 1991 and it was $2 and I didn't believe him. Oh, if only I didn't do that. I mean, obviously that's a very layman's term example, but it's interesting. How, because your specialization and the reason I had you on was for the breath work that's very intriguing to me because I don't know much about breath work in a sense. I've heard of meditation. I've done some relaxation things with sports, but the breath work is new to me and I'm not familiar with it. You know, in the sense of like fears and calming anxieties and things that people have that are short term, is breath work able to be utilized in that sense to help with anxiety and stuff of that nature?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the fastest way to deal with those things.
And is there a short version? Like we did one last time we recorded when the recording didn't work. We did a 5-minute breath work beforehand that I would say got us into the zone to talk and open up our mind a little bit.
I was so high after that.
Yeah. And yes,
I had to like brace myself. That was almost too much for us.
Just 5 minutes, really?
Well, yeah.
Go into that.
Well, okay. So the more you do I call it active breathing and it's commonly known as breath work, but I've always been kind of like, it's not work. Once you have what I would call a big experience. So, or 2 or 3 or 4, however many, but like there's a moment, in fact, that's that's part of the question that I wanted to ask you guys.
Yeah.
Before we started recording.
Fire away.
We did 10 breaths together.
Yes.
10 simple breaths. We went inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. We did that 10 times. And then we held for about 5 seconds on the last one. Mm-hmm. And then we let go. Breath is so common. Well, what happened is I heard, and I know we have a lot happening in this space right now, but I heard you guys start moving. And then the computer went and came on, right? It was like wildly timed, right?
Right.
But in that moment, I was as high as I have ever been in that very moment. And I have, as you know, right, I've smoked bufo, toad venom, 8 times. That's the most potent psychedelic substance known to man.
Right.
That's not DMT, it's 5-MeO, which is 4 or 5 times more potent than DMT. And DMT is intense. So in that moment, I was in a state of, whoa, just getting a rush of, whoa. But it's that there's a few seconds there where and I think that we just had a lot going on here in the room, but if we just stayed in that moment another 3 seconds longer, you guys would have gone, what the fuck? Because it's that rhythm, just 10 breaths with that rhythm and the inhale hold, it broke just like 2 or 3 seconds before what would have gotten you guys to like full wash. Mm-hmm. Why am I saying that? I don't know. What was the question? What are we talking about?
I was originally asking about breathwork with anxiety and stuff, and I think what you were tying that into is we did do that because there was a lot of chaos in the room as we were getting this ready because of cameras not working and things of that nature. We had to pivot. I will say with the breathwork that we did last time, that we did a 5-minute one.
Yeah.
And I already mentioned this, but it felt like it was very much to get us like centered. And with that being said, I remember feeling a tingly sensation in the front of my head and down to my nose. And I was like, I haven't felt that tingly sensation before.
Yeah.
And that was like, got me kind of giddy and in the moment more. Mm-hmm. But what is that sensation? Am I opening my third eye? Am I getting high off of less oxygen, or am I getting high off of more oxygen? What is that I'm feeling when I'm doing breath work and it's like a tingly and then it kind of goes into like a warmness as it fades out?
Yeah. Well, there are a number of things that are happening. And the breath, depending on if it's, depending on the timing of it and how deep and the pacing of it, it can do everything from actually expelling oxygen from the forebrain to enriching oxygen to the forebrain. What you probably felt in that moment was actually a reduction of carbon dioxide in your blood, and the brain actually receives less oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So in the type of breath that we did that day,
Yeah.
likely that was an increase in carbon dioxide in your blood. So the oxygen levels in the blood can only ever really fluctuate between like, you can get readings up like down to like 80, but like resting oxygen saturation levels are usually around 95 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
So it's less about like hyperoxygenating the brain, because we're at any given time pretty much oxygen rich. In that case, that feeling, that fuzzy and the tingling was probably an increase in carbon dioxide in your blood. A little bit of a kind of a counterintuitive thing.
Right. You think you're taking in more oxygen. Reality.
It's like, oh, I'm tingling. That must be oxygen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now I sound like an idiot. No, I didn't know what it was. If we were, because we were taking deep breaths in. And then another question with that is we were taking breaths in and out through our mouth. And obviously we can breathe through our nose and our mouth. Are there different techniques where, like, and again, for instance, today we had one where we breathed in through our nose and exhaled through our mouth. Are those different? Again, I don't know anything really about breath work. Does it matter which you're breathing in and out of? Do they do different things when you're focusing on it? So is there like a different routine for something different?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Go in a little more depth with that. So like, for instance, with using just your mouth and doing deep breaths in and out with your mouth, what is the purpose of, why is it just with your mouth and you're not using your nose to inhale and exhale?
Typically when we're focusing on breathing through the mouth, it's so that we can get more air movement. So that's about actually getting more airflow.
Because the surface area is bigger, technically. I mean, yeah. Okay.
So like if you're doing deep, like journey breath work, like the stuff we did at my studio, you would try and do all of it through your mouth. When your mouth became dry, you obviously have to move to your nose. That's not a big deal. The most important thing is actually staying with the rhythm of the breath. So it's the sine wave, the consistent sine wave of a breath over extended periods of time, in my experience, is what seems to kind of induce non-ordinary states of consciousness. And that could be through the nose or the mouth. I think even more important than that, in my experience, is actually the rhythm of the breath and keeping the sine wave of the breath.
So the rhythm's more the key than which way you're inhaling or exhaling.
Yes. And that being said, you can also, breathing through the nose upregulates or creates endogenous nitric oxide, nasal nitric oxide. Which nitric oxide actually got like molecule of the year in 1999. Like the scientists who discovered nitric oxide in the human body won Nobel Prizes for their research. It was like a decade of research, and it was called the molecule of the year. And as far as I know, and I'd be interested to know what the actual facts are, Daniel, but I'm pretty sure that the only ways we can get nitric oxide are through breathing through our nose and eating green leafy vegetables.
Okay.
I'd love to be like corrected on that, because I
unfortunately today we don't have that accessibility to that.
I thought we had a researcher over here.
Okay. We do not have that today. Part of the technical.
You don't have AI over there? You don't have something?
No, he's doing the notes right now.
All right.
Sorry.
But yeah, as far as so nasal nitric oxide, so just to give you a real snapshot of what it is, it's basically fairy dust. It's fucking amazing. So no, it's fucking amazing. So it gets created on the surface of our nasal mucous membrane, and it has like a half-life of something like 2 to 3 seconds. So it's like, okay, a little more background on nitric oxide. These scientists who won the Nobel Prize, they had a more difficult time finding functions of the human body that were not co-regulated or regulated by nitric oxide than were. So basically, nitric oxide is involved in more of the functions in our body than less. It's either a precursor molecule, it's like a part of how we operate, more or less. And it's a very beneficial molecule.
It's interesting that as big as an impact as that has had, there's like, this is the first I'm hearing of it. Like, why is that not taught in school? Like, hey, you should be breathing in through your nose.
Yeah.
Do 10 rhythms for a minute, or whatever.
Or just breathing through your nose. Like if you're walking down the street, without a doubt, be breathing through your nose, right?
Really?
Pretty much any time. Like I actually mouth tape at night. I've been doing it for 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Like I put a little piece of 3M tape right here, a little like surgical tape or whatever. And I don't go a night without it. Like even if I come home late, after a night out, I will tape my lips. I will remember to tape my lips because I sleep that much better.
What do you think about the nasal strips? I've started to use nasal strips.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an issue maybe with the air getting in, that could be helpful.
I've noticed that. I mean, I've noticed my allergies since moving out here have just been horrible. So I've been using it, and it's supposed to help with sleep. And I don't know if it does, but I have also a whole sleep regimen. But that's like something I've added to it recently, where I like it. I like wake up and I don't feel as congested or anything.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it might be good.
That's
because
definitely like a step in the right direction, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're encouraging breathing through the nose. You're also making it easier. So if you're on your side, you're more likely to not go to your mouth, basically. Yeah.
So then with snoring, does that affect, obviously, because that's a lot of times I think of people with their mouth open when they're snoring. So it affects obviously that. Oh yeah. That no, what is the dust? What is the nose? The fairy dust called?
Nitric oxide.
Nasal
nitric oxide.
Yeah, I would say there's
but it is, the molecule is nitric oxide.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's weird that we wouldn't be. There's so much though. It seems that we're not being taught at school and colleges, or even told by the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, of like what is good and what is not good. I mean, I don't want to get into things, but like just taking your vitamins on a natural, like I don't know why that's not like a more common thing of taking your vitamins and your minerals, like that they're essentially for your functions.
Yeah.
And then people just don't ever take them, or they don't know about them.
Yeah.
And then, they go to the doctor and, your vitamin D levels are low. And they're like, what do I do for that? And it's like, you can go outside, or you can, you can take some and do both. And but then at the same time, I just found out within the past 2 or 3 years, the vitamin D, which you get from the sun, is one of the more essential vitamins in your body. And not only and not only that, it's not even a vitamin. It's considered a hormone that helps regulate your body. And so it's like, why would you not be taking vitamin D more? Obviously they don't want you can't take too much. Then there's vitamin D poisoning, but it's weird how that, I always knew what vitamin D was. You get it from the sun. It's the most layman's term example, but then to find out it's more of a hormone and how it regulates your body for daily functions. I'm like, how they just missed that part? They just told you to get sunlight. That's all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's why would you not tell us more about these essential things? It's interesting too how we'll get back to breath work. I have a lot more questions with that, but on that topic, I think it's very interesting how it seems as though Eastern medicine and Eastern teachings are becoming more and more part here in the West because of recent events and people not sure or trusting of what's being said. But then you have ancient teachings, the things that have been passed down and things that have been said for generations that turn out to be working and just fine, whether it's, a certain plant or a certain technique for breathing. I don't know. I think it's interesting nowadays. We're starting to see a swing back to things like that.
Interesting.
You're not seeing that?
Well, no, I have a question. So
absolutely.
So you said
I thought I stumped you again. You look like you didn't have anything in the tank for a second.
No. Well, I
was like, oh no, I gotta come up with another question.
No, I was curious with the I got the sense that what you were saying was that, like, let's just call it Eastern traditions had kind of been outed. Okay.
We think about like we've been growing up. It's like take NyQuil, take a vitamin, take a pill.
For sure. Yeah.
Oh, you got this problem. Take this pill. Oh, now you got another problem. Take this pill.
Yeah.
Versus now it's like just simple things of like literally simple things of taking vitamin or I'm gonna take a certain mineral instead.
Okay. Yeah. And so there were a couple of things in there that were interesting to me. One was even this like idea of like taking vitamin D, right? Like, how about having a mineral rich diet?
Agreed.
Right?
Lower
Like,
food's
so
horrible,
your
but yes.
cabinets are like all sorts of cool things from all over the world, right?
Yeah.
Like mushrooms and matcha and all the cool things. Good quality coffee, and you're getting minerals from all these places, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm actually taking a vitamin D supplement right now, but I also I sun my balls in the morning, I actually go out of my way.
I do know what you're talking about. I just wasn't ready for you to say that.
Get my vitamin D, dude.
One of the best things I will say in the morning to wake up right away is to just like get sunlight. Not necessarily on your balls, but in general, getting sunlight first thing in the morning is so good for you. I like my apartment I'm in now is the first apartment I've ever had that when I wake up, the sun is like it's immediately shining in my room. I haven't had that ever.
Yeah.
And if I did when I was younger, because I wanted to sleep in, I was like, blackout curtains. I need them.
Yeah.
Now I don't do that. So I actually been sleeping. Only I didn't do it last night because the freaking parking lot across the street had all the lights on for the first time ever. But like I will sleep with the blinds open and I'll wake up like an hour after sunrise. And it's perfect. And I wake up rejuvenated, and then the sun's shining in on me.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. It's great. That's great to have sunlight in the morning in
Yeah.
any fashion.
Yeah.
Why?
The more the better.
I know. So I know of tanning your balls. I know of this, but why? What is the thought behind it per se?
You know what?
Like direct vitamin D to the source of testosterone. Is that the thought? Okay, cool. Then we'll move past that. Yeah. People of the pod report back.
People I trust tell me that's a good thing, and I feel better. So.
Do you do? Speaking of morning routines, do you? How early or how quickly do you grab caffeine in the morning? Do you wait? Or do you...
I feel better when I wait, but
Yeah.
I don't typically.
Yeah, it was something I was talking with Daniel about. It was the morning, like Huberman's morning routine.
Yeah.
And one of the big things is sunlight in the morning, but then it's like no caffeine for the first, I think it's like 90 minutes, is it?
Yeah.
And the reason for that is like your cortisol levels are super high. And what caffeine does, I am not a scientist, but I listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
So hopefully I don't butcher this, but apparently caffeine it binds to receptors that block the cortisol release. So what you're doing is delaying your cortisol release. And what happens if you have caffeine right away is it builds up, and then that's when the afternoon crash comes, is that cortisol releasing all at once versus how it generally goes down lower, and then it builds back up later in the night. So when you take caffeine within the first hour and a half, you're postponing it, and then it comes and hits you, and you have that that afternoon like drag.
Yeah.
And it can also be from lunch, depending on what you have. If you have a big, hoagie sandwich, you might not feel that energetic.
Breakfast burrito.
The carbs get to you. But I thought that was interesting because morning routines, I think I've been more interested in them as of late because of trying to change habits. The sunlight that I now have in my room is a big one that helps. But I've never been a morning person. And even now with those things, I feel like it always takes me like an hour and a half to really like get going. If I'm like to get up and then go to work or go to somewhere, if I have to like get up and move right away, I can get going. But like, if you were to like be like complete this, if we have this work project that needs to be done in 30 minutes, like it will take me a little while to get going.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather be ready for that meeting and wake up an hour and a half before and be ready versus like thrown into it. It's just like something about it. I don't know if that's me. I always get groggy. Is that something that...
Yeah, it's actually interesting you bring that up. There's, recently I've been, somebody that I really love said in their view, the first 2 hours of the day should be on your fiercest work.
Interesting. Okay.
And I've started to, only as of the last couple of weeks, really honor that. So for me, that's the rabid creativity, that's the like, going at it, whatever. It's throwing paint at the wall hard, right? And so I've started to try, instead of I was doing a like probably almost 2 hour or hour and a half segue into my workday. I'm like waking up, doing my thing, making coffee, and letting myself do what I feel fire to do.
Okay.
And that's typically creative.
Sun in your balls.
No, that's like just before the sun is up.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. I was like waiting for it to talk about. Sorry. But so to be creative. Creative.
Yeah, so it's like I'll wake up and so I'm kind of playing with a little bit of a different style of morning routine where there's also something too that it's quiet outside and the streets aren't buzzing.
You're right. How early are you talking here?
Oh, just I don't wake up to an alarm. I just wake up to the sun.
Yeah, the best alarm.
It's usually around 6 to 7.
Okay, yeah, it's not like you're not like waking up at like 4 a.m.
No.
And you're like, I gotta get after my day early, like Mark Wahlberg or something. Which respect, I could never do.
I think he probably needs an alarm to do that. I think alarms are like non-human.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I switched over to like a lighter alarm, like one that kind of soothes in.
Nice.
Because I used to have that, the and like you wake up in a state of panic, and then I started thinking about that. I'm like, I don't know if like waking up in that, fight or flight mode is the greatest thing. Yeah. Like I could probably use that at some other time of the day.
And you don't feel as much as a young person, but the older you get, the more you feel that alarm. Like at least for me, maybe it's just my sensitivity levels, but like I would say the last since COVID, the last 5 years, like that stuff is like, if I'm dating somebody that has an alarm that hits like that, I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? This is not okay.
This isn't working, by the way. No, I have a buddy. Oh my God. I have a buddy who I get on him all the time because I travel with him a lot, and he'll put on and he'll hit snooze, and then it's the same thing like 8 minutes later, and he'll hit snooze like 5 times. And I remember one time I was like, if you hit snooze one more time, I'm getting up and I'm beating you up because like, this alarm is killing me right now.
Okay.
It's like that
just turn it
then
off.
Down for 8 minutes, and then and then imagine that 5 times. Yeah, he knows who he is. I hope you hear this. We give him so much shit for it. We're like, turn it off. It's horrible. Do you find, you said you do you're testing the waters with this creativity during the morning
first couple hours of the day,
but in the past or even now, do you still find at all, like, I don't know if you consider yourself a night owl, but I'm coming from my perspective, and I'm someone again who like I tend to do a lot better and I'm way more productive at night than I am like during the day. Like something about that, again, like my day gets started very slow, and as it goes on, like I can just start getting things done. Do you ever have that creativity at night? Have you ever had it or not?
Yeah,
not really?
I think that's I think that's probably pretty common. I know I feel like there's and that could also be that, life, the world isn't on in the way that it is from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So it's like we're allowed to kind of like think out of the box or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Something I've always loved. I was always more awake at night. I had a lot of trouble falling asleep. Like the brain just starts fucking like that whole like. Some people have that in the morning where it's just like I gotta go 1,000 miles an hour, and like mine's at night where it's like we got this, we got this, we got this idea. What about this idea? And it's like, whoa, I have to like quiet it to go to bed.
Yeah.
And I always loved like growing up being out at, not even necessarily like out drinking and like partying, like, but just like out at night, like a nice night drive, you know, down by the beach, go out to the water, sit in your back porch, have a glass of whiskey under the moonlight. Like, I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I can't do that in the morning. Be labeled an alcoholic if I did that.
Yeah. I mean, I think of Neo in the Matrix. I think of like, you know, like doing stuff, you know,
At night.
at night.
Let's dive back to breath work,
Yeah.
because that is the main reason I had you on. I love our detour. We're going to dive a bit back into it. I want to start with which something you did point out earlier, in that you call it active breathing and you don't call it breath work. And I find that very interesting. And I want to know a bit as to why you call it that. What's the reasoning behind active breath work and saying that and going, yes, it's breath work, but I don't like that term.
Yeah. You know, that thing I mentioned in the beginning about the big experience.
Yeah.
It's not work when you get it.
Okay.
So when it gets you, pretty much, in my experience. And this is also like, in some ways, I had to do a lot of breathing because I was directing the studio. So I was around, and that's what was going on. But the truth is, I fell in love with it. The first time that I did what is commonly, like popularly known as breath work, the thing that actually became a thing.
Yes.
I didn't know what I was going to. It was like, oh, we're going to do some breathing. And I went to this little studio in Venice, California. This was like maybe 2015, 2016. And this woman like told us lay down and breathe like this and don't stop. And that's what we're doing. I was like, okay, cool. Like I was, at the time, I was practicing Kundalini and a yogi of many, many years and many, many years. of my life, whatever. And like, yeah, cool. I'm into that stuff. So we lay down and start breathing. And the next thing I know, I came to. I basically had kind of gone unconscious more or less, but I wasn't unconscious. I was kind of in a trance state more or less.
Okay.
And when I became aware, so the last thing I remember that we were starting to breathe, the next thing I remember, all my clothes were covered in sweat, and I was breathing really intensely and rhythmically, just like I was instructed to in this certain 3-part breath that I told you a little bit about that we used to do at my studio. This 3-part breath: belly, chest, let go. Belly, chest, let go. Over and over and over and over and over again for 45 minutes or more. The next thing I know, I'm going, what am I doing right now? And I was in that pattern of breath. All my clothes were covered in sweat. And I was going, what is happening to me? Where am I? And I was just in this breath, this rhythm. And I knew in that experience, that first experience, this is crazy. Like, this is wild, like that I could have that experience. And this is, you know, in a safe container. This is the intention of why we're coming here. And whatever this breath is doing to you is maybe for your good. Like maybe he's working out some stuff. And so the big experience, what I was talking about earlier, the big experience, once you have a big experience, it's not work. It's like you want to go back, you know?
When you talk about a big experience, are you saying in the sense of almost like an out-of-body experience or some form of a similar psychedelic state? What exactly are you meaning by that?
Yeah, I would say it can be both and all. Like my experience with the breath is that it literally covers all of those bases. So like you can go to dungeonous places within your consciousness and your karma and your life. And it's not uncommon. Like you can, and you will, if you practice, you will go to places that are uncomfortable, where it's maybe states of just pure discomfort. incredibly uncomfortable. But the sense is that doing that is a processing of that energy or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
of that consciousness.
We
It's just like feeling it, you know,
Yeah.
like the trope, or I don't know if it's a trope, but the idea of like feel it to heal it, right?
Absolutely.
Is it still on?
Yeah.
Feel it to heal it.
Right.
You do feel pretty much everything eventually.
Yeah. We sometimes have heard the terms with psychedelics and tripping of like a bad trip and a good trip. Is there a similar lingo when it comes with breath work that you can have?
The beauty, I think, and the difference between a psychedelic experience on a psychedelic drug versus a psychedelic experience with your breath is that the breath is very kind. It will always return you to peace. So, like, even when you're going through that darkness with the breath, it's very momentary, and you can't not be with the feeling. So it's almost like you can't resist the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're feeling it, but you don't have the capacity to resist feeling it. So you just feel through it. So it's less painful than like a dark psychedelic.
A lot of times you could attempt to fight
Yeah.
that bad thing.
Yeah.
And then it will spiral and get worse and worse.
100%.
With breath work in that sense, you brought up something in the feeling it is does breath work have the ability to release, I guess, pent up energy or help you come to these realizations? You've spoken with me a bit on having realizations through breath work.
Hell yeah.
And is that something that is achieved in a short 5-minute session, or is this a longer session? And if so, how long? Let's talk a little about those revelations.
Yeah.
And
that's the juicy juice.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Go for it.
So, a lot of the science is being done right now to understand what's happening here. There's two big things that I think are really relevant to this topic. One is gamma brain waves, and the other is dimethyltryptamine, DMT, and endogenous DMT. So breathing, and I can't give you the parameters of the research that's been done on this, but it basically various types of rhythmic breathing upregulate gamma brainwave activity. And the gamma brainwaves are the fastest brainwaves that go from our reptilian brainstem to our prefrontal cortex. So those fast brainwaves are connecting basically our subconscious or unconscious mind to our conscious mind.
This is going to be my next question. If it opens up the subconscious self, or better connects you to that subconscious
100%.
self.
In fact, I think that's why I found it so valuable, is that the revelations, and I feel like I told you on the last time we sat down to talk, I can't count how many times when running the breath studio, I would have my holy shit moment. I mean, this would happen twice a week, probably. I would like Bruce Lee kung fu myself. Like I'd always get a mat at the back of the studio because I'm, I've got the office over here or whatever, but I wanted to breathe, where I would literally like fly up off the mat, just like fucking guard it. Like Mario getting a golden mushroom or whatever. Just like, I did what I was here for. Let's go. So massive revelations. Yeah.
And do you feel as though it connects us to our high conscious self a bit?
That's one way of putting it, I would say. Yeah.
And do you find that Do you find or maybe it allows people to easier access that unconscious self? Sorry, I said conscious before. I meant unconscious self.
Unconscious, yeah.
Yeah, the person behind the scenes, the voice
Yeah.
in your head, essentially,
Absolutely
helps connect.
And that's where the reduction of blood flow to the front of the brain comes in. And that's the sensation of what's happening, that tingling effect, the increase of carbon dioxide is actually reducing blood flow to the front of the brain, which is where essentially the self lives, the ego lives. Essentially is where fear lives.
Is there, I just lost that. I'll pivot. Another question was, you mentioned during these breathwork exercises, active breathing activities,
experiences
that you might have moments of pure ecstasy and bliss.
Oh yeah.
And I'm curious about those two. Again, coming from someone who does not know much about breathwork, is that something that is coming in a short period of time, or is this something that you're actively working? Not working is the wrong term, but you're actively taking the time to get that rhythm going and getting to that state in X amount of time or minutes?
Yeah, I would say it builds. And it builds, and but mostly it builds in skillfulness and sensitivity. So breath, I would say, in some ways is a subtle drug, if you want to call it that, like just playfully for the moment.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the more you find it's almost just like working out, like doing deadlifts or something, or, learning.
The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah, like ice skating, just when to throw yourself for the. So the same thing in my experience happens with the breath, where, essentially like in yoga and in Kundalini, for example, there are bandhas. There are locks and gates up the human body.
Okay.
And so you can essentially, like in Kundalini, you can essentially pull the energy up by locking certain bandhas in your energy system. So you can pull the energy up. And breathing is definitely, I would say it's probably the most primary form of yoga. It's the most simplified form of yoga. We also, I think we don't, we think, we say like, oh, that's hyperventilation, or, oh, someone's passing out, or like, oh yeah, almost passed out. Well, when you almost pass out, you can actually get close to sitting at the feet of God, more or less. Like you can sit at the feet of God, from passing out.
Right.
Passing out is just a stage towards an NDE, a near-death experience.
Makes sense. I would say
just another step closer.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And so like in those spaces, like we're all foundationally mystics, right? Because we are consciousness or awareness or whatever we are. But like you can capitalize on those moments and stay lucid in those moments as essentially the brain shuts down. So you can basically, in fact, many of my breakthroughs in my mystical path have been through passing out or taking too much LSD or whatever it is, where I have no choice. Like 5-MeO with toad venom, you have to die. If you don't die, you get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
If you don't give up everything when you smoke toad venom, you go to hell. If there's a speck of dust on your shirt that you didn't surrender to God within a phase of about 20 seconds, you will go to the depths of hell. Not the gates, the depths. You have to give up everything. You have to give up life. You have to die in order to experience the bliss of something like 5-MeO DMT. And I know because I've done both. And I almost didn't do it again because I was afraid to go back to hell. And it's a very short experience. And that's a whole other topic. I know this podcast probably isn't about psychedelics, but
we can talk about whatever on here. No problem here. I do have more questions with the breath work, but are there different breathing techniques that can bring out a different purpose?
Yeah. Yeah. Generally, breathing is, I would say it's equalizing of the nervous system. So whatever we've got going on, it will, like, if it could be low energy and it will bring you to more of a neutral, and it could be high energy or maybe hypertension and it'll bring you to a neutral. So I would say like that is the most common energetic of breathing, is that it brings you to neutral.
If someone,
There are breaths that can, like, you can actually, with the breath, you can upregulate the production of endorphins, for example, and cortisol. You can put the body into anytime the body's in a hypoxic state where there's more carbon dioxide than oxygen, you're basically in a state of hypoxia, or like an intermittent stressful state. And so, like, there are with Ether, with my breathing app, there's one called endorphin alchemy. And if you do that, you'll be lit up. Like, you're just going to be lit up. Whereas if you do, a different, and that's a very fast, short breath sequence. It's like 6 minutes long, but it's like, whoo, like I am going, like I am awake.
Is that something someone could utilize in the morning, like in the morning, they're trying to wake up? Or
yeah, that would be something for the morning. Yeah. Or afternoon.
Got a big sales call. Gotta get on this.
Yeah.
Combining the natural and the corporate world together.
And you think about it, like, the truth is, like, if you look at the breath and, like, you think about how many times is it take a breath? You're getting on stage, you're dealing with anxiety, stress, depression, sleeplessness,
right?
A gazillion things.
Of course.
It's always take a breath. You're going to hit a ski jump, take a breath first.
Yeah. What is that? Thinking of taking a breath, what is that we all naturally do it, where we just kind of like, the big sigh. Mm-hmm. What is there a reason behind the sigh?
Yeah, absolutely. There is. In fact, Andrew Huberman has talked about this. He calls it I think he calls it a physiological sigh. Basically, you look into nature.
Now that you say that, yes, but keep going for people that don't know.
So exactly what you did. In fact, I did it, simulating you, and it felt really good. It's like,
it's like relaxes you.
Really nice, yeah. But what that does, we should actually do that. Let's do it. So we'll take two breaths in.
You're in it too.
So we'll go. So what that does when we're in stress, which is life, like modern life is stressful. You drive across town and you're stressed out. It basically deflates the alveoli in our lungs, these like gazillions, millions of little air sacs in our lungs, and they deflate. And so the first breath, so the idea with the double inhale, the physiological sigh, is that you're basically bringing in air and you're kind of like pre-inflating the alveoli. And then that second breath, you're maximally inflating the alveoli and you're kind of like equalizing the stress, more or less. And you see that in nature. You see animals, your dog will do that.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they're laying there like, what are you stressed about? Are you going to have no bills to pay for? Come on now. Another question I have with breathing and the different purposes. Breath work, if someone is having or has an emotional trauma or an emotional block, and is breath work a viable technique in which they can use to attempt to unlock that and I guess kind of what you were saying earlier, maybe feel it out and let it go. But I'm not familiar with how that would work or what the proper term is. But is that something that if you're having an emotional trauma and you're doing the things, therapy's not working, is breath work an alternative to turn to?
100%. Yeah. In fact, again, like back to that, like my experience of breath practices are that they're the most primary. They're more primary than any other practice, including meditation.
I'm so glad you said that because I was about to bring in meditation to my next
Yeah,
question.
we didn't hit on that.
We haven't hit it yet.
The meditation hell.
We haven't hit it yet, but go ahead. Continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Emotional trauma, releasing that with breath work.
Yeah. So, yeah. Think about everything. I don't know if you've heard of this book, The Body Keeps Score.
No, absolutely not. But it sounds amazing.
It's been around for a while. I haven't actually read it, but I've been exposed to a lot of people who've read it and heard the ideas from the book. But basically, the body keeps score. So, like anytime you experience an emotional kind of agitation or contraction or trauma, it's felt in the body.
Somewhere,
and
right?
And unless we know how to move it through in the moment, it will kind of like add itself to our being. Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. It's always like been a casual joke of like men die earlier because they die of a heart attack at 50 because they've got all this emotional stuff they're just holding in, or like they go off to war, they get PTSD, and it's just hell. It's from the event that they've experienced, and they don't, like, women are very easy and they let that go and they cry about it and they release it, and men are just like, stuff it down. We die at like 50. That's the joke, but it's kind of, but like it's a joke, but like there's kind of some truth.
Women actually live longer than men.
100%, and they also always release their emotion. Like Bill Burr has a joke about that, where like his dog died, and his wife was bawling her eyes out, and he went to the bathroom and he was like, I was about to cry, and I just stuffed it down, just put it down, save it for later. It's something we're all. I think this new generation and a lot of us are not doing that. I know I'm trying not to. That's something I've definitely taken heart in. Again, just in the last 6 months, or in general, just trying to be more open about things and not just hold it in, because I've realized that doesn't work too well. You don't even realize it. Like it is also fast on the flip side of that. To me, it is fascinating how our minds can just be like, nope, we're going to just stuff that, we're not going to think about that. Like, and then it, resurface, like a couple months later, and then we like can resiliently be like, no, I'm going to shove that down again. Because your mind's trying to protect you. And so it is a defense mechanism, and it's got good intention.
From feeling more of that pain.
Correct. Right. It's got good intention.
100%.
But if you let that intention fester for too long, it can turn into a disease or something of that sort. Yeah, it's very interesting how that works.
A subpersonality, depression.
Yeah, all those. Yeah, I agree. You brought up meditation, which I'm so glad you did, because that was literally going to be my next question. I find, let's go, what's the difference between meditation and breath work? I think there's some overlap from a person who is unknowledgeable. It sounds like there is. When I think of how meditating, I've always thought about controlling my breath work, or only focusing on my breath work to just like get out of the zone. But we'll dive into that. But every time with meditation, it's like 1,000 things come in your mind, and you're gonna like, which I've got thoughts on that and stuff. But let's start there. What's the difference between breath work and meditation?
That's a good question. It's said that the Buddha, and I can't source this, but it said that the Buddha never gave meditation instructions without first breath awareness. So breath awareness, I see two kind of sides of breathing outside of our unconscious everyday breathing. You have breath work, or active breathing, what I call, and then you have breath awareness. Breath awareness is more in the meditation side of things.
Kind of what I was talking about. You're like focusing on it, but you're not doing it with a purpose.
Which essentially is the entry point for classical meditation, the breath. So you'll see it in like Vipassana, like in the Buddhas, like in the traditional Buddhist meditations, you'll see an awareness of the breath without manipulating the breath, just awareness. And then you have the active breathing, or breath work. And I see them as kind of the two ways of using the breath. For me, I actually went to a 10-day Vipassana retreat, 10 days of silence
Okay.
when I was 29. And that's, you know, if you haven't gone without like silence, like no
Right.
speaking or communicating for an extended period of time, it's very strange.
I can only imagine.
It's extremely
Put a
uncomfortable.
pin in meditation. Let's talk about this experience.
Yeah. Well,
10 days.
that's what we were doing. So we were meditating for 10 hours a day on a 36 by 36 square in silence, 10 hours a day, 1 hour sits, and not talking to anybody for 10 days. So I had a roommate, like a bunkmate, but like once you go silent, like that's one of the foundations.
Right.
You're silent for 10 days and you meditate
Just you in your
10
head.
hours a day.
Just you in your head. That's it. Oh, that's terrifying for most people. Most people can't go more than 5 minutes without being silent.
Yeah.
Most people think driving your car in silence is insane.
Yeah.
I told someone I did that the other day and they were like, "You're insane." And I go, "It's great. Actually, I get to think about things for 30 minutes."
Yeah.
Now, multiply that.
Yep.
That is interesting. What was that experience like? I want to put a pin in meditation because I want to talk about that particular experience, even though you did meditate. But my questions with the breathwork and meditation. So what was that experience like?
So we got to the retreat center. It was in Oregon and out on kind of like a natural reserve.
It's so much cooler if you were in South America. I'm just kidding.
South America? Yeah.
It's so much cooler if you were out of the country.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we were in the nature, but yeah, there were deers coming up and it was nice.
Yeah, what are these people doing?
Yeah, right.
Talk for 5 days.
Right. Yeah, it must be. What's going on here? Just walk around like monks.
So you get there, you're in Oregon, you're silent for 10 days. What was the progression of the days? Was the first day you're like, I can do this, and then by day 3 you're like, I'm going to kill myself.
I
don't know.
Exactly. Really? I don't even need to tell this story.
Okay.
Seriously.
So it was a struggle, but then toward the end of it, did you have relief and then you came out of it feeling like I can conquer anything? Or what?
Yeah. Those are great questions because that is like, it's almost like you know the story before I even tell you.
You might have told us.
Did I?
But I didn't know how the ending went. You did tell me that you had a struggle at the beginning, but I didn't know to the extent.
Okay. So first day we get there, everyone's dropping in. There was like maybe 70 or so people on the retreat center. You're given a bunk mate or a bunk and you have someone in there with you. You chat. You go to the first meeting at like 7 p.m. or whatever in the main hall. And it's like, cool, this is what we're about to do for the next 10 days. And from this moment forward, you're not saying a word. And so you go back, you go back to your bunk. This is my experience. And it's very strange to be in the presence of another human for 10 days in an intimate space and not saying anything, including the cooks and the people in the cafeteria and the people serving us vegan food, all of that. So by day 2, I had a kind of like shocking revelation of how insane I was. It felt like I was a pinball machine. My brain was just boom, like just wang, 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 wang. There was no way to express anything. There was no even casual anything. It was all just had to be processed within. Saying, walking by my roommate or going to it's just all happening in there.
Right.
And so by the end of the second day, I was like, oh shit, I am crazy. Like I have 24 voices in my head. This is not okay. I pushed through. They say like day 3 or 4, in fact, there's a percentage of people that leave on day 3 or 4 or something. And then on day 4, what's called strong determination begins. And that's where you do 10 1-hour sits. And each sit, your instruction is not to move. And that might sound like, oh yeah, don't move. No, it's don't fucking move. So you sit on a square, 36 by 36 or so square. And the first few days are like, yeah, do you like that pillow? Like you have all these different like meditation cushion options.
Like none now.
It's like you can pick from that bench or that pillow, but it's still on this little square. And because they're basically kind of priming you for what's to come, more or less, where you sit 10 hours a day and each in 1 hour segments of not moving. And that not moving is extraordinarily uncomfortable.
I bet.
Excruciatingly. Like by minute, by day. So when this strong determination started, by I would say like 25 minutes. So I chose to sit on a little wooden stool with my legs usually, actually crossed, but with the pressure kind of off of them. And it's the best position I could find. Like it was just pain, pain, pain. And I think everyone was experiencing that. So I found my little bench, and by about 25 minutes, it felt like I had grenades going off in my knees. And by literally 45 or 50 minutes, I couldn't feel my legs. And so I feel like I'm exacerbating it a little bit. Like some people are like, I love Vipassana. Like, it was just terrible.
Yeah, you were one and done. You were like, I'm done. I did it.
By the end of it, at the end of the 10 days, I made it through, first of all. Like, there's no way I was going to fucking leave. I went out of my way to come here. Like I would think so poorly of myself had I left. So by the 10th day, everyone's like, you can talk now. And everyone's like rejoicing and like they're happy and blah, blah, blah. And I remember like circling the like the field and kind of looking at everyone celebrating, going like, what the fuck? Like I want to die right now.
I would like
These
to
people are so happy.
I would like to get away from all of you right now.
Yeah. And fuck you for being happy. I just wasted 10 days. So that being said, I even committing to like multiple months of meditation practice and like being disciplined about it, even in the comfort of my own home. I never found that I could really feel good in my practice. Like it never felt good. And it wasn't until I found the breath that I found, like probably 2 years into practicing the breath, I was like, meditation, bing, like Buddha.
Yeah.
Like I know what that is now. I know how to go there.
Yeah.
But it was through, and this is my hypothesis, just to kind of close the response to that. My hypothesis is that the modern human is so frizzed out that to sit and be there, just be there,
Okay. Yeah.
is a lot for a modern human. And so we need to, let's say, iron out the nervous system to get in a state of okayness before we do that.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I recently, a couple things. First, with the meditation side of things, of that, where your brain like starts going 100 miles an hour and 1,000 thoughts start going through your head. One of my favorite business philosopher type people is Naval Ravikant. And he has a saying where he's like, your mind is like a email inbox. And just like your inbox, you get thousands of emails, and some are junk and some are just things and some are just memories from 5th grade. And it's everything from your whole life the second you started remembering things. And as you're meditating, those inboxes start coming in and filling up, and you start thinking about different things, and eventually you can get down to zero where you're just thinking about what happened that day. But if you haven't meditated before, you're going to have a lot of different things where something comes in and you're like, oh, that thing from 5th grade where I pushed that kid down during soccer. Oh, I still feel bad about that. And then you got to work through that. And eventually you get to a point where, hey, I'm just thinking about the day or the week's task. I'm not thinking about things that happened 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I find that very interesting because I definitely get where like thoughts come through and it's like, I guess I'm facing that now, or what most people do.
Do you say facing out?
Facing that,
Facing that, yeah.
that thought
Okay.
or that thing that comes in your head.
Yeah.
And what most people do is they just push it off and then you got to deal with it again later. But yeah, I think that's very interesting with meditation. The other, I forgot the other thought. I just had it. That was going to be a good question. Well, the other, lost it. Trying to get it back.
That's all right.
Something to do with meditation, though.
Breath awareness essentially achieves meditation.
Yeah.
That's the other. Okay. It's another thing. I mean, I could just riff on that for a second. It's part of the response because breath awareness, just without manipulating the breath, just being with the breath, bringing your attention to the breath without manipulating it.
And you were talking about how that, the frazzleness of people today and how that can help you with just like being aware of the breath. And I was going to say, I totally agree with that. In how today's society, we have 1,000 different things thrown at us from the phone. I mean, literally like everyone's on their phone all the time, or even, and then you go to a coffee shop and you got the laptop and stuff. But like, I think about that a lot nowadays. I've been thinking about that and how to mitigate how often and how much I'm on the phone, because what happens like first thing in the morning, back to a morning routine, you grab your phone, you start scrolling on Twitter. Next thing you know, you're amped up or you're depressed, whatever your current battle is. And you see a tweet that reflects that battle, whether it's a political tweet that gets you amped up because you're like, fuck that side, or you're depressed, and then a loving quote comes on about like, sometimes you just gotta let them go, and you're like, like whatever, like, but like you could start the day off so bad because of that thing. And I think about mitigating the time, like you wake up, all right, I'm gonna not look at my phone for 30 minutes to an hour, besides turn the alarm off, and then they get ready and know like, okay, I gotta leave, but I'm not gonna doom scroll, I'm not gonna listen to music, and being more present with yourself nowadays because of so many distractions that we have. A perfect example, I might have said this before in our talks out of the podcast, but like I look at like nowadays, before, a perfect example is back in the day, you could go in the shower and it was just you and the most natural thing on earth besides your breath, which is water. We're like 75% water. And you would have these things where you would have shower thoughts and like ideas would come in your head, and you'd be like, oh my God, I got this new idea. And like people have a whole Reddit page dedicated to shower thoughts because that's how it used to be. Now, if I want to like not think about something and just again like shove it down and just push it to the side and be like, I don't want to think about that right now, I can just put a podcast on, put it on the corner of the shower, and then shower and not even think about it. And I'm listening to something. And now I'm no longer present with myself. I no longer had that 30 minutes. I'm now present with a podcast and the phone and the YouTube. And it takes you, again, it's another thing taken from us as human beings that connects to our subconscious self, because the self and the subconscious self are really one and the same. But now there's a ton of disconnect. And we're just building off of what you were saying about how we're so frazzled. I think it's so important nowadays to attempt to mitigate yourself from being on the phone so much. That's why, like I said, like I take a car ride, and you know what? I'm just not going to put music on for this car ride. I'm just going to drive. Like, I love that. Like, and then you have 30 minutes where you're just whatever comes in, you're on the open road, it just comes in. And sometimes nothing comes in. Sometimes you're just driving and you're like, oh shit, I just made it to my destination. Fuck. Like, it's crazy. And I don't know. I've been doing that the last like month. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to just start disconnecting a little bit more in certain areas of my life that I've noticed the phone has always been in. Like that podcast shower example is literally me. Like I love, don't get me wrong, some days I like want to do that, but sometimes I was using it as a distraction. Like,
want to do what? Play the podcast in the shower?
Yeah, some days I want to relax and just sit down and listen to something. But some days I put it on because I have this thought in my head and I don't want to address it. So I'm just going to put this on as a distraction. We use it more as a distraction than we do as a useful tool, is my point. And that's, I think, why a lot of the times we are frazzled out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. And two, like being with your own thoughts, Like
Yeah.
there's almost not a moment when we're with our own thoughts these days.
Yeah. Another big thing, journaling, getting those thoughts, like having to sit, same thing. Like, hey, I'm having to sit with myself now. And not only am I sitting with myself, I'm going to write down whatever comes in my mind. Same thing. Like you want to explore some of the dark areas and some of the trauma, like it might just come in and you have an option to either like sit with it for 20 minutes while you write it out or pick up the phone and shove it down.
Yeah.
But now we have breath work. Now I can throw breath work into this. Do some before bed to relax, get into my zone, do something to wake up. I'm very intrigued by this. I want to talk real quick before we close a lot of this out about your app. You're developing an app called Ether that is going to have, correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to have different breath work techniques and things we can do, like that 5-minute one we did, and then we'll also have longer ones. Is that correct?
Well, it already is there. It's already there. It's available.
I forgot. It's developed. Yeah.
I need to get you in there so you have that on your phone. So it's available. It's going to be built over many years. Like it's ever changing and growing project. But it's got a baseline. What is the goal with your app? What made you decide I'm going to start a breathwork app? Well, that came out of the studio. So the studio, again, back to the like breathwork studio in Venice. It was seeing thousands of lives changed. Yeah. It was seeing people work through everything you can imagine, like from the darkest shit to the coolest, lightest revelation.
Ecstasy
shit.
We were talking about, the revelations. Okay.
And then going into COVID, I had to close the studio, pivoted. This is actually the second breathing app that I've developed. So the first one was with one of my star teachers, and he was the voice. He was also a voiceover actor, Netflix, Nat Geo. It's fucking amazing. I'll never be as good as him. And this one, I basically, in order to have the kind of creative control that I wanted, I had to do it on my own, more or less. Yeah. And so, it was seeing all those lives change and falling in love with the breath, also being a psychonaut and loving to like, I both have trauma from my childhood, and I also love feeling amazing. So I love it being in my life. I've been on a path, as I feel like I shared with you earlier, that I had this experience in the shower when I was 27 and I owned this nightclub.
I actually don't remember this.
Okay.
You're down to get into it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Let's get into it.
When I was 27, actually, here in Denver.
Actually, can we end the podcast?
Yeah. Do we want to? Yeah.
No. I was joking. Like you would say that. No.
I'm enjoying this. This is fun.
You're good.
Yeah.
Better be good. You better. Yeah. You
bitch. Cheers.
Cheers. Oh my gosh.
There's another one in there, isn't there? I got what do I got? I got little kitty lozenges and zins.
Pull out the zins. And we got to know about this story. This 27-year-old story, because that's the age I'm at right now, and I guess maybe I'll have a revelation.
Well, I feel like we talked about it. You got one?
Oh. He was getting real.
You want a little like micro lozenge?
All right. Well, it turns out Daniel, producer, already had zins, and we didn't have to do all that. But let's dive into this revelation. And all right.
You say you don't edit your podcast, but you're gonna have to edit this out.
No, I'm not editing this out whatsoever. Yeah. This is what the people sign up for. Hey, raw and authentic.
I need this silent document here.
Why? You haven't done anything. Thank God your mic can't pick you up. I'm just talking. Looks like I'm talking to myself. He's you don't think they have every conversation you've ever had in your life saved down in the archives? Project Pegasus. You know what Project Pegasus is? No. I'm gonna freak you out real quick.
Yeah, do it.
Project Pegasus is the Israeli Mossad software that they made a Pegasus 2 because one wasn't enough. but it can hack into anything, and they can
heard
record
about
They can
this,
record and
yeah.
have everything. So they have it. Whatever you've ever said in life, they have it.
Is it still
You watch
operating?
porn on
or-
your phone, they got to video you. I'm just being real. Like, they can do
No.
whatever. Yeah, they get backdoors and everything. Yeah. They got this conversation right now. Before they know we're talking about them before I even put this online.
Is this what you want to talk about right now?
No.
Oh my
I'm just telling
God.
you about it.
Oh my God.
It's a
That's
nightmare.
some
You know what'll
simulation
help you?
shit.
What'll help you not freak out is some breath work.
Okay.
That's it. That was not a dig. That was for real. I want to know about this revelation at 27 that you had. I'm intrigued because I think I've always been told that at the age late 20s, everyone always says your 27th year is the year that you experience a lot of troubles and tribulations, and you either pivot.
Saturn returns, right? Saturn returns, kind of a.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly what Saturn returns type of thing. So I'm 27 right now. I got to be honest with you. My 26 year could not have been any worse. So I have a lot of hopes for 27. I can't imagine it getting, knock on wood, but on the real, like so much happened at the age of 26 that I'm like, I think that was my Saturn return. I should get that looked at, and I'll talk to my friend who's a good zodiac person. But
I think it's possible.
it is, yeah. Probably it had
probably.
to have been. I've never had so many things happen at once in my life.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other story, and this isn't about that today. So tell me about your 27th year.
Yeah. All right. So when I was 27, I owned and operated a nightclub and 4-star restaurant here in Denver off Blake and 14th.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I had been running it for about 2 years, and I was visiting my father in Alaska, where I'm from, and just like February of 2009, and I'm taking a shower. It's like 6:30 in the morning, out of the blue. And at the time, like, I was pretty cruisy. I was, backstage everywhere, VIP everywhere, celebrities, like, I didn't have a whole lot. I was doing millions of dollars in alcohol sales at a young age. And this was my like tertiary business. This was like the third one that was the fun business. So I was cool with money. I was cool with some level of like celebrity. And so I'm not sure why this happened. It's not like, first of all, I wasn't on a spiritual path. I wasn't using a lot of drugs. I had never used psychedelic drugs before at that time. And was in the shower and spontaneously became aware of myself in a state that was not something I had experienced before, in a state of mind that I had not experienced before. And when I became aware, I was in the shower again, like 6:30 in the morning or whatever. And when I became aware, I was basically pulsing in front of the shower curtain with the water falling down and back to shower. I mean, that's how this came up. And my sense of self. Okay, so basically, I became aware of myself pulsing in front of the shower curtain. My sense of self permeated my perception. So I wasn't local. I wasn't out of my body, but I was in the air between my perception of myself and the curtain and the bathroom wall, the house and the stratosphere and the galaxy. Like, my sense of self was distributed everywhere through my perception. So I was basically in a non-dual state. When I look back, like, oh, I can see all these ways that they've talked about it classically.
Yes.
When I became aware of this, it was like, oh, shock. My brain became shocked, and that shock created a contraction in my psyche, and that contraction made the feeling start to diminish. And I did not want it to diminish, and so I relieved my awareness of the state. I let go of my awareness of the state and expanded back into that non-dual, or I would say like Buddha mind, or whatever, this Christ consciousness, this allness. And I stayed there for about 2 minutes, 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And at the end of it, I knew I would have to go back to my ordinary state because I could already sense that my awareness of the state contracted the state.
Right.
And so at the end of it, I stayed there for a while. At the end of it, I pierced it into my brain intentionally. It was like I branded it, like burnt it onto the surface of my skull, my gray matter. I said, Leo, never forget, this is here. This is accessible to you. And then finished my shower, went back into my state. Didn't know I had experienced that. It was very strange, psychedelic. When I got out of the shower, I was drying off with a towel. I realized what had just happened. And there was more, there was subtlety to it. There was definitely characteristics and qualities. Felt like that state, I felt like all I'd ever known prior to that state was the bottom of a very, very deep ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I had spontaneously shot to the surface and taken my first breath of air. And like ordinary life was the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
When I was drying off, I recognized the towel against the flesh of my shin. I was like, and then I realized that had just happened. And I fell to the bathroom floor weeping with joy. Like so lit up, so excited that was possible, that was available. And I would say that's when I first kind of became a like self-identified psychonaut mystic. I'm like, fuck, that was awesome.
And so you did that, and like what made you want to get out of the lifestyle you were in, essentially?
Yeah. So yeah. I realized, whoa, like I'm chasing petty shit, and like this doesn't mean anything, and who cares about who you are, people think you are, whatever it is. It was like, wow, there's a lot more to meets the eye than,
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
People only know you at your surface level, really, when you really think about it. Like very few people know you into that next level. That's why, like,
including us,
including us,
for the most part,
absolutely.
Tell certain parts of life, we don't know who we are.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. Yeah. And you let very few people know the ins and outs of yourself to that extent. There's a lot of trust that comes with that, and it's usually accompanied by love in that sense. You're not usually sharing yourself to that extent unless it's with someone you love and trust in that situation. I have one more question for you for today. We have so much more that we can talk about, but I always ask this question for guests on their first time. If you recall, if it's okay if you don't, I'll remind you. But it's the theme of the podcast, which is the LYFE, which is live yourself for every day. So the question is, how are you, Leo, living yourself for every day with a lot of the teachings you just talked about and breath work, and what at your core is you? And as a reminder, that I know that's a very open-ended question. We talked a little bit about this briefly, but this isn't, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just something for the listener to see a little bit into that side of you and maybe learn something as well.
Yeah. I would say, like, for me, it's allowing myself to be a glitch in the matrix.
Okay.
And allowing myself to do and be what I want to do and be. And that's complex. That's like a whole can of worms.
As I do and be.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's that commitment to following my dharmic path, like what I am compelled to do and what I think is important, and where I think I can make the greatest impact, and staying committed to that. I think that in particularly like our generations aren't, and it's natural, but not quite catching up to that. We are the first generations that will live indefinitely. And that's a big pill to swallow. That's like, it changes everything. When we no longer have the problem of death, disease, and dying, what happens to time? What happens to this moment? Well, we don't feel rushed. That's for fucking sure.
Right.
Like, we don't, like, and that's something that I've been tracking for more than a decade. But the truth is, if we're living for ourselves every day and we don't have a time horizon, we're doing exactly what we want.
Right.
We're following our fucking impulse.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like the same philosophical question when people ask, like, what do I want to do? You know, I have that question, what am I going to do in life? What's my calling? And there's always that one saying where they go, well, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what would you do? Because right now, because of limited time and limited money, and money being the main factor that prohibits people from a lot of the times chasing after what it is they really want to do artistically, you ask them that question, and at the core of that answer is what you should be doing. Because it's not about the money then. It's about what your passion and joy is. And the big trap too is that with your passion, and if you follow it and work at it and perfect your craft, the money comes regardless. It's just, it takes maybe a lot longer than a normal way of going about things.
Not always. I mean, you're right. You're right in the longer part, because there are some of the greatest artists who have not been seen in their lifetimes,
right?
You know?
Yes. But their art gets immortalized later. Yeah, it's very interesting. I will be pondering that tonight.
Yeah,
because that is interesting. If we have endless time here, you're always going to be doing exactly what it is you want to be doing. But why not take that lesson and do that right now?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that we are literally the first generations that are grappling with that, or that will grapple with that.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting though that we also put this construct of time on us? I mean, because in the same sentence, you technically don't know when it ends, so you could do whatever you want whenever, because you just don't. It could end in 40, 50 years. It could end tomorrow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's this. We put the
get
year
hit by a car,
stomp
get into a car
on
wreck.
it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So again, back to that philosophical question: why aren't you doing it now?
Yeah.
But it's great to have that mind thought of like, I should just do what I want to do right now. Yeah. Obviously within reason. I think I always say this: you can be a good person without being a dick to other people. You can be selfish with yourself and your love without being like a dick to people. You know, same thing. Like, you should do what you want to do, but not at the expense of others. You know, there's that fine line of things. I always like to make,
and that's probably I think that's one of the only rules.
Right.
Is do no harm.
Yes, I agree. So in sum, you live yourself for every day as if you were living
1,100%.
Yeah, 1,100%. Living
Methuselah style.
Living 1,100% with Leo.
I would say, like, for me, it's mostly about like what is most compelling to me. Like what is most compelling in the world for me.
When you say compelling, is it equivalent to passion or something different and a different definition?
Yeah, I would say it's passion and the why. You know, it's the why and the passion. I think passion is secondary to purpose in a way.
Okay.
Like,
elaborate on that.
Like, purpose has more to do with,
like your calling, like why you're here, what you feel drawn to do.
Yeah. Like an instruction, right?
Okay.
That wherever it came from, you have.
Right.
You have an instruction to serve in this way. And it's always service. Serve in this way. To do, you know, to fix this problem, or to help this, you know, movement, or this thing or to innovate in a certain particular way.
And then passion draws from.
Yeah, passion to me is more motive, and it's like it's a second layer in. It's more fiery, and it's I would say it's the fuel of what brings the instruction into form. It's more like the fire that.
Yeah, it's the gas on it that gets it lit first, and then the purpose comes in after.
Yeah.
So the passion.
You think about like, okay, I want to go there, and you're like, I really want to go there, right? And then it's like, now you're like buying the plane tickets or whatever.
You don't know why,
is,
right? And you don't know why.
That's the passion that drives you there.
Yeah. And then you get there and meet the love of your life. There's the purpose. Just that's a dumb example, but you know, like that's kind of what you're saying, right? Like you go there, you go to that place, you have no idea why you're going.
Yeah.
But you find the purpose when you're there.
Yeah. Well, I would say too, I mean, I would say she's probably on for your ride in that case. Like we're all on each other's rides, right?
Sure.
Yeah. She's a part of your ride, but like whatever that place that you really felt you needed to go to. Yeah. Sometimes that instruction could be short-term instruction that leads to the next stage in which you have a bigger map.
Yeah.
Right. Or whatever, bigger instruction.
Would you say another way to look at it is passion is more of the you and purpose is the higher you?
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like purpose is like the not you. It's like that's the God or the universe.
The universe is giving you this instruction.
The DNA or a combination of all those things.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Yes. 100%.
The place in which you were born.
Yeah.
Shit you were born into.
Yeah, I love that. I love all that. I loved our conversation. There's definitely a ton more we could talk about. We're about an hour, 45 in.
Oh, good.
So great.
We did
great
it.
pod. Yeah, of course we did. And you're coming on again.
All right.
We've got way too much.
I'll come back.
We got a lot of things we could talk about.
Yeah.
But I wanted to really focus in on the breath work this time and get to know more about you and again how you're living yourself for every day. That's always the theme of when someone comes on the first episode. So
can I ask you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've had a couple hundred of these podcasts,
yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what have you learned? What have you learned from asking the question?
Gosh.
That question.
So much, honestly.
Like what's happening in your, because I imagine you probably know a lot more about that than any of us that come on your podcast.
You would like to think that, but it's ever changing. I mean, as I said, like it's a question that is so broadly open-ended that there's no right or wrong answer. And you can take away something new every time I ask that question. I mean, what you answered with, I haven't had anyone answer with. So, you know, it's exciting for me to ask that because every guest I have is a different person and they come from a different background and a different walk of life. And some of them are all different professions and some of them might be even in the same field, but they got there in a different way, but they all tick a different way as well. And that's what's intriguing to me about having guests on and asking that question is because they all have a way that they're living themselves for every day and they might not even realize it, but it generally speaking chalks up to like exactly what they were talking about the first hour to first half of the podcast. I can't tell you how many times when I got to around 70 to 80 episodes, I started to realize, oh, these people I didn't realize it. They for sure don't realize it in one episode, but when I asked them about how they got into their profession, how they got started, what do they like about it, dive into the ins and outs of it, they're answering how they're living themselves for every day, especially if they're passionate about their work. If they're not, then it differs and they might leave going, I'm not really as passionate as I thought about what I'm doing, you know, but like if they're into what they're doing, they're talking about it and then they answer it and it like the two just line up perfectly. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Does that answer the question? Hopefully it does.
I think so. But I'm curious for you as a person, like more personally.
Yes.
How would you interpret? How would
I interpret my own question?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And what are you learning about your,
To be completely honest, I felt it for a while, and it's something I would say I'm working on and I'm getting back to. But I felt like for a while I wasn't living myself for every day, or living the me, whether that be in a relationship or in work and things I'm passionate about. I felt that I was not doing those things. And I've taken a step back on deliberately because I realized I wasn't living myself, and taking some time to get those things back in order is very important to me, because I think my real self is, I'm very intrigued and introspective, and I want to learn things, like asking you a bunch of questions. But then I also am very silly and goofy. Like I like to make subtle, small little jokes and laugh and make others laugh. And that's a very interesting dynamic. Yeah. And for instance, today we laughed a good amount. We had times.
And that's a core, that's the jester archetype. Yeah. It's foundational. We need that.
Yes.
Right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
But it's something that just in, even with the content I was creating, I was kind of feeling like this. I think burnout is an indication that you're not passionate or enjoying what you're doing. Because if you enjoyed it, you would just keep doing it. I don't know if that's so simple, but I would make content. And to be fair, I do like making content, and I don't mind making specific festival or rave content that I was doing. But I think I was going too hard at it, and I almost made it too much of a job. I took the fun out of it. But then by taking the fun out of it, I stopped being me, because I got into it for fun.
Yeah.
It's very complex. And then the other, sometimes you just got to not think about things too much. You start getting in your head too much.
Yeah, 100%.
So I don't know if I really answered your question, because I definitely am figuring that out. I can definitely say without a doubt, I think this podcast is integral to that now. Out of everything I've done the last 5 years, this is the one thing that is consistently sticking in my head as I enjoy this. I mean, we've sat down for almost 2 hours, and I didn't know it was 2 hours until I looked over. It was great. Felt like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun doing these. I look forward to doing them. I leave with something new. I love just talking to people and getting to know them and watching them work out questions I might have. It was very interesting earlier when I sprung that fear question onto you. You were just and I'm the wheels are churning. He's not sure what to
do. Yeah.
It's fun. It's just fun. It's a great time. And then at the end of the day, I love the fact that somebody out there can take away something from this.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the last 5 minutes or the first 5, or they take away the entire breathwork part, they're going to learn something. And I think that's a big thing I like too. I've always, at my core, loved helping people. Mm-hmm. And that's what this podcast is an extension of.
Nice.
I think I answered it at the end there.
Yeah.
With the last 5, that long ramble, I answered it at the very end. I like to help people.
Nice.
Figure out what they're doing and living themselves for every day.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll talk a lot more. We definitely have to do a part 2.
Dude, there's 6 other podcasts in here we got to talk about.
Oh, so many. I agree. We're excited to have you back on. Thank you so much for taking
Thanks for having me.
The time out of your evening. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening. Yeah. Let the people know where they can get the app and where they can follow you.
Yeah, they can get it at ether.one, O-N-E. That's ETHR.1. So there's no second E. That being said, right now there's a 6-week, it's kind of like a 6-week transformation, more or less. But I'm about to release basically a library of breathing. So you don't have to come in through the intense 6-week thing. So nice. Ether.one. Yeah.
Ether.one. Go check it out. Breathwork, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.